This is the Fredericksburg Neighbors Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Dory Stewart.
Welcome to another episode of the Fredericksburg Neighbors Podcast. Today we have a fantastic neighbor joining us today. Bennie Wall is an estate attorney with Carell Blanton Ferris Attorneys at Law. Bennie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm excited for us to dive in. Let's start off by sharing with the listeners a little bit about your business and the services that you offer.
Sure. Carell Blanton Ferris is a law firm that focuses exclusively on estate planning, estate administration, and elder law. So we're not doing any other type of law like divorces or traffic tickets or any of that. But we've been around since 1993, so a little over 30 years experience in what we do. Our roots are in Williamsburg, but over the years we've grown, and we have an office downtown in Fredericksburg here, which is where I work out of. So
nice. Awesome. So tell us what drew you to law and what drew you specifically to, estate law.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a small town in Southern Virginia, and I always remembered growing up thinking about what I wanted to do. I always thought it was fun that the lawyers down there anyway, they had off on Wednesdays to play golf. Turns out that's not how it really works in the real world, but that was one thing that initially kind of struck my interest. But estate planning just became a natural fit for me. I went to University of Richmond for law school, and I graduated in 2015 and worked in Williamsburg for a year at another law firm. But I was doing estate administration, which is like the back end of estate planning, like after someone has died. And I pretty quickly realized that there's a lot of things that can happen on the back end of estate planning that people haven't thought of or could have been simpler.
Wow.
So I wanted to get in kind of ahead of that and start working on the front end of things. And so I started doing estate planning more, and then I joined Carell Blanton in 2017, and I've been here ever since doing it, and I really like it. I enjoy it a lot more than trying to fix problems. I like to get ahead of them so people don't actually have them.
Right. Yeah, that does sound more enjoyable than some other aspects of law where you're right, you're dealing with the problem at the back end. So I understand that. So do you find in your industry that there are any, myths or misconceptions?
Yeah, there's a few, but kind of what I hear probably most frequently is a lot of people think doing estate planning has to be kind of scary, right? Having to think about death and having to go through a process of putting together paperwork. And a lot of people will kind of move toward trying to do things that try to keep attorneys out of it, like using beneficiary designations on accounts. And they can work fine for some families, but when they don't work well, it creates a lot of issues. I've seen families where they've named a beneficiary and the beneficiary passed away before the parent ultimately did, and the outcome was not what they would have intended based on their other documents. And then a lot of those beneficiary designations have different provisions on them. Some will have a default that says one thing, whereas another account might say something different. And if you don't sit down and actually go through and read all those, you can have different outcomes on different assets. So it's a good idea to at least sit down and talk with someone to kind of put a thoughtful plan in place where you're thinking through, here's what I'd want to happen in these various scenarios, as opposed to just trying to put a quick fix on things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that made me think you probably, or let me ask, how often do you need to revisit your plan? Because, okay, so you sit down and you go through the process of, getting everything, situated, and then, like you mentioned, someone may pass or things change. How often should people revisit their plans?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of times, it's not necessarily how often as much as it is when life events happen, right? So if someone in the family passes away, or someone in the family's gotten divorced or has gotten sick, it's worth revisiting. As your kids get older, I have a lot of people who they'll do the initial planning when they have minors, young children, trying to name guardians, and then they don't see us again until their kids are in their 50s. It's like, well,
oh, wow.
is that still how you want things?
Right.
What you did back 30 or however many years ago? So a lot of people take a while to revisit it. A general rule of thumb is at least pull it out and look at it. You don't necessarily have to meet with your attorney, but look at every 5 years or so just to see if everything's still the way you want it, because your assets change, your family dynamics change. So it's worth revisiting. What we do for our clients is we reach out to our clients every 5 years or so with a letter just saying, here's what's happened since you were last in our office, and here's some things like a checklist that you should look at. And if any of these are true, it might be worth pulling out the document, seeing if they're still doing what you want.
Nice. That's super helpful. Okay. So when you're not working hard at work and helping your clients, what are you doing for fun? I need to know.
Well, right now, most of my fun is tied around my 5-month-old son. So
that is fun.
it's that stage of life, right, where rolling around, fascinated by everything. Right now, his big obsession is ceiling fans. Anytime he sees one, he's going to break his neck to look at it. But yeah, so maybe when he's more mobile, we can do some fishing or hiking, things I used to do months ago.
Oh, that is so fun. So fun. Well, congratulations. That's amazing. I love that. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, can you describe a hardship or something that you have gone through and now you feel you are stronger and better because of it?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I grew up in a kind of small town, and I was the first in my family to even go to college. So when I went to law school, I remember having a kind of hard time with that because I was around people who were from more urban areas, had more education, things like that. But one thing I was really surprised by in law school is how quickly things would get complicated around like legalese and how certain attorneys will kind of treat clients more as a clinical transaction than as a person. And thinking back to like my roots where I grew up, I just was like, I could never talk to people in my neighborhood like this. Like they want to keep things simple. So when I was kind of looking at my own practice, I started thinking, how can I implement that into estate planning? Because really what I wanted to do was take what can be a complex, difficult conversation and try to make it as simple as possible, and to have kind of real conversations with people and making sure that the client feels heard and that they feel respected at the end of it. And it's not just me trying to overtake their conversation and talk about all the legal things that could happen in an estate. Instead, say, well, what are your actual goals? What is you trying to accomplish? And then what tools can we use to make sure that your family's going to have what they need? So,
yeah. That's amazing. So that makes you more well-rounded in being able to talk to lots of different people. So that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
What is something that you wish the listeners knew about your business?
Yeah. Hopefully what people can take away is that estate planning is something that everyone can benefit from. It's not just for people of a certain age or certain wealth level. Anyone can use some level of planning to make life easier for their family. And like I said, at Carol Blank, we've been doing this over 30 years as a firm. So we've worked over that time to make a process that works well for people. It's approachable, it's judgment-free. We put together a lot of free resources. So if you go over to our website, there are things there on blogs. We also do a class called Wills versus Trust in the area, and that's completely free for people to attend. So I think it's a good entry point for people who are just curious and want to learn more, but also helps people feel more confident about getting started in their planning, because we go over the different levels and the different types of things that you could have to go through.
Amazing. So you mentioned your website. So I imagine that's the best place for our listeners to find you. Can you give us that URL?
Sure. Our website is www.cbflaw.com. So cbflaw.com.
Awesome. Bennie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today and sharing all that you do. Listeners, reach out if you don't have an estate planning attorney. Reach out to Bennie. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, no, thanks for having me today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Fredericksburg Neighbors Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to fxbgneighborspodcast.com. That's fxbgneighborspodcast.com or call 540-534-4618.